When discussing the art of governance and the preservation of the throne, there are two methods for a sovereign to establish absolute submission within his kingdom. The first method is to build a massive force of officials and soldiers, placing eyes and ears in every corner, and using direct power to crush any seeds of rebellion. This method appears majestic, yet it possesses fatal weaknesses. It drains the treasury and depends entirely on the loyalty of those who hold the sword. The second method is more subtle, more ruthless, and far more destructive to the souls of the people. It is to transform the subjugated masses themselves into tools of mutual imprisonment. The core idea behind this machinery of manipulation is razor sharp. Use the people to rule the people, rewarding anyone who dares to denounce the transgressions of their fellow citizens with a portion of the assets seized from the offender. This model is not a random invention. It is a masterpiece of statecraft, what great strategists call realpolitik, or practical capability. By carving a fragment of punishment to toss into the pocket of an informant, the sovereign not only buys loyalty, but also succeeds in manipulating the darkest instincts of humanity. This analysis will strip away each sophisticated layer of disguise from this power trap, allowing wise minds to recognize how the powers above toy with the masses. First, this issue must be viewed through the lens of the foundation of all power, the economic equation and the self-regulation of the ruling machinery. Any court, even one possessing infinite gold mines, cannot afford to maintain a bureaucracy large enough to monitor every word and step of 10,000 citizens. The presence of soldiers and officials always has blind spots. Furthermore, maintaining a colossal surveillance system always carries the risk of betrayal from the very individuals granted the power to control. However, when a law decreeing rewards for informants is enacted, the burden on the court immediately vanishes. The sovereign does not have to spend a single penny from the treasury. The lawbreaker must use their own assets to pay for their punishment while simultaneously sustaining the one who sold them out. This is a perfect closed loop in the art of governance. The court merely sits on the mountain to watch the tigers fight, playing the role of the impartial arbiter, collecting the lion's share of the fines for the national treasury, and tossing a small fraction, called a bounty, to the informant. The ruler borrows the bottomless greed of the masses to tighten the shackles around their necks. Each citizen is now not only a tax-paying laborer, but has voluntarily transformed into an invisible outpost, an eye of the court that never closes. The sovereign ingenuity lies in turning legal compliance from a forced obligation into a feverish hunt for profit. There, the mistake of a neighbor becomes a gold mine waiting to be exploited. When survival and personal gain are weighed on the scales, the luck of a transgressor is completely nullified, for they are surrounded by thousands of eyes, waiting for the moment they stumble to rush in and tear them apart. The second principle constituting the greatness of this trap is the tactic of divide and rule, and the collapse of social trust. The most formidable strength of the people lies not in the weapons they hold, but in the bonds between individuals. A cohesive community where people trust and protect one another is always a sturdy fortress, barring the interference of the throne. To rule with absolute safety, the sovereign must shatter this bond. No blade is more cruel than sowing suspicion into the very roots of every family and village. When a law allowing citizens to profit from the downfall of their fellows is proclaimed, the social structure is instantly inverted. People no longer view their neighbor as a brother sharing the same hardships, but scrutinize one another as potential prey. A poor farmer can instantly change his life simply by secretly reporting his friend for hiding a bit of grain off the records. A blacksmith can receive a heavy bag of reward money just for reporting that the man next door uttered disrespectful words in a drunken stupor. Ancient history has witnessed the mightiest kingdoms apply this tactic thoroughly. Lords divided the populace into groups of 5 or 10 households, tying their lives and assets to a common thread. If one person committed a crime and the others concealed it, all were punished to the point of destitution. But if someone stood forward to denounce the crime, that person would be granted titles, gold, and the very estates of the offender. As a result, those kingdoms created a society where betrayal became the standard of living, a yardstick for loyalty to the sovereign. The highborn need the masses to be isolated. When every individual lives in fear of being denounced and constantly seeks the opportunity to denounce others, they lock themselves in a shell of silence and deceit. They dare not form factions, dare not discuss great affairs, and certainly never dare to gather to challenge the authority of the court. When no one dares to trust anyone else, all bridges are cut. The crowd is now nothing but scattered grains of sand, and they have only one support left, one supreme entity to which they must submit, the absolute power of the throne. The third principle exposes the illusion of justice and the art of redirecting hatred. One of the greatest threats to the throne is the fire of resentment from the masses. As laws become increasingly draconian, dissatisfaction naturally directs itself toward the lawmaker. But through the bait of the informant reward, the sovereign performs a matchless magic trick, breaking the path of indignation. Imagine a carpenter fined half his fortune for violating a minor prohibition. If the court soldiers discovered and punished him themselves, the carpenter would curse the cruelty of the court. But if he knows that his drinking companion from the night before secretly ran to the magistrate to inform on him for a few measly coins, the fire of his resentment will immediately shift direction. His mortal enemy is no longer the sovereign high above, but the despicable neighbor living right behind the adjacent wall. By this stratagem, the court has transformed a conflict between the ruler and the ruled into countless small conflicts among the people themselves. Hatred and the thirst for revenge merely circulate at the bottom of society, neutralizing one another. The highborn remain unruffled on their thrones, maintaining the facade of just, benevolent judges who step in to adjudicate the greed of the commoners. The informant is also imprisoned in an illusion. Holding reward money earned from the sweat of their fellow man, they lie to themselves, believing they are guardians of the kingdom order. They are not lucid enough to realize they are merely cheap pawns, minions doing the dirty work for the court. And then, in the near future, they too will be ready to be trampled upon by another person using that same ruthless logic. The fourth principle elevates the art of dominance to a new height: the creation of an omnipresent ghost and the absolute domestication of the mind. Fear is the most effective tool of governance, but what one fears determines the level of control. If people only fear guards, they will only be obedient when a guard appears and will immediately break rules once the guard's shadow vanishes. But when anyone, from the wood seller in the market to the wife sharing one bed, could be the eyes and ears of the court, fear turns into an invisible ghost haunting every breath. This is the ultimate realm of domestication. Humans must self-censor every thought and behavior, even when alone in a vacant room. Extreme suspicion transforms the entire kingdom into a giant prison without needing to build a single stone wall. Even the smallest oversight is scrutinized by the masses with the ravenous eyes of bounty hunters. The sovereign ingenuity here is establishing a chessboard where the master of the game always holds the winning hand. Man's instinctive jealousy naturally desires that no one lives easier than themselves. When the court skillfully hooks a material reward to that psychology, they legalize the act of backstabbing. This domestication seeps so deep that, over generations, new cohorts of people will consider stalking and reporting the faults of others as a natural way of life to survive in turbulent times. Beyond economic calculations and division, this mechanism operates on a profound psychological trap: the creation of false loyalty. Humans always crave recognition and the feeling of being valued in the eyes of their superiors. The sovereign understands this and turns it into a weapon. When a person receives a reward for denouncing a fellow citizen, what they receive is not just material gain, but a title of patriotism and loyalty to the crown. The court cloaks the act of betrayal in glamorous euphemisms such as protecting discipline or exemplary citizenship. Dressing treachery in a robe of honor allows the informant to shed all pangs of conscience. They do not believe they are selling out a neighbor for a few coins. Instead, they convince themselves they are executing the will of a sage king. This is the pinnacle of conceptual substitution. A wise dynasty always knows how to make the people feel proud, while they personally slip the yoke over someone else's neck. Yet the nature of this loyalty is incredibly cheap. True loyalty requires sacrifice. whereas loyalty bought with the fines of others is merely a mercenary exchange. Today, a man reports the mistake of a neighbor for a reward. Tomorrow, if another power offers a higher price, he will not hesitate to turn his back. The erudite sovereign knows this well, but they do not need pure loyalty. What they need is for the masses to be busy destroying one another. As long as the crowd is preoccupied with scrambling for hollow titles and money stained with resentment, the throne remains as solid as a rock. Finally, we must dissect human nature through the prism of power. Human nature inherently carries the seeds of selfishness and greed. A wise sovereign does not waste energy lecturing the masses on altruism or brotherhood. Instead, they directly exploit the darkest pits of humanity. The crowd is always adept at using morality as a screen to hide their narrow-mindedness. Establishing a system of rewards from the fines of others is the court way of handing the people a perfect mask. An informant can loudly claim they are protecting the majesty of the law, but in reality, the most powerful motivation is envy and the desire to publicly seize the property of another. When a kingdom is ruled by this method, it will outwardly radiate an aura of majesty and perfect order. There will be no one stepping out of line, no visible opposition. Everyone bows their heads to work and is cautious with every minor regulation. But just beneath that quiet veneer is the rot of human dignity. It is a society that has died from the inside, where compassion is discarded and each individual becomes a solitary island, timidly defensive under the gaze of their fellow man. Aristocrats well versed in the art of statecraft understand a truth. To maintain a stable throne, they do not need a society that produces people with high ideals. They only need a populace that is mentally weak, divided in will, greedy for profit, and perpetually suspicious of one another. Such a collection of individuals can never unite to threaten power. The naked truth of the art of dominance lies not in the praises of a peaceful kingdom, but hidden in the mechanisms that bind humans by their own weaknesses. Using the assets of the transgressor as bait for the backstabber is a ruthless move, yet it yields massive governing efficiency. Dissecting this mechanism is not for the purpose of moral judgment, but to expose how power crushes the innocence of the masses. As every reward coin falling into the pocket of an informant is extracted directly from the misery of the one who stumbled, the masses remain preoccupied with tearing each other apart in an endless vortex that the sovereign has coldly laid out. Will a person joyfully clutching their reward money today be sober enough to realize that out there, countless other eyes are also waiting for the moment they themselves trip, ready to seize everything left of their lives?